run down the panel and just give a quick intro of who you are and kind of what your specialty is. Just a quick background story. So yeah, Lynette, you want to start?
So I'm Lynette Garris. I've been paleo for a little over 2 years, and I have a couple companies going, a natural skincare company called Cave Necessities, and a nonprofit organization called Health by Habits, trying to bring awareness to the Chicago community about health.
Can everyone hear her? Do I have to speak louder than that or quieter?
Louder.
Good?
Louder. Okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Alex Cody. I am a sports nutritionist. I've been for a few years, and I work with Julie Burns, who started the company Sport Fuel, an integrated sports nutrition consulting firm. We are the team nutritionists for the Blackhawks, some of the Bears, some of the White Sox, none of the Cubs.
That's why they're losing.
And that's exactly it. And that's kind of my story. So I'll be the more athlete-focused questions.
Oh, my name is Jim Marlowe, and I've been doing nutrition and health counseling on a professional level for 29 years now. And although you don't know me, you may know Dr. Mercola. I was the chief nutritionist at Dr. Joe Mercola's clinic for over 7 years. In the glory days of the clinic, when we had a lot of people come.
My name is Nick Warnemont. I was an MMA fighter for a long time, and through experience with personal chef that really changed my life, I decided to found a company, Factor 75, that the name is based off research showing 75% of your fitness results and performance come from what you eat, and started a company to make personal chef service more affordable and available and enjoyable than for the regular people.
Nice. All right, so just so you guys are aware, we're going to do like the first half of it, I'll be feeding questions, and then the second half we'll open up and we'll dive into whatever particular topics are most interesting. So let's just start, Lynette. Why'd you start going paleo, and how did it affect your health? I know you have a backstory there, so just kind of share that.
So approximately 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, so it was underactive thyroid. I think I was technically in the normal range, but I was on the lower side of it, so I think I was diagnosed based on symptoms. And I had symptoms, all the symptoms like enlarged goiter, dry skin, constipation, fatigue, no matter how much sleep I got. Weight gain was another side effect, but I didn't experience much of that one. Was put on medication. Based on my research, was told I probably would take this medication the rest of my life. Was not interested in that, so looked at alternative medicine. Found paleo, and I'm completely fine, feel amazing compared to 3 years ago. Off medication, blood work is fine. So that's what got me into paleo, and I would never go back. So that's my backstory.
Awesome. Alex, so why did you become a sports nutritionist?
I had no idea what I wanted to do for a living, and I did know that whenever I had, I guess, lost a good amount of weight myself, and people would ask me questions of, why, and they thought that I was some sort of expert, and I had no idea what I was talking about. So I just dug really deep and researched it. I was a personal trainer for a while, and I really just decided to go into nutrition from that perspective, and then afterwards just found that working with athletes was just a little bit more appealing to me. They took it more seriously. They knew that proper nutrition was a competitive edge for them, and they're really in tune with their bodies. So it was just more appealing to me to work with athletes, because I was more of I'd like to know things rather than be a therapist. So instead of convincing people why they should change, I just preferred working with the people who knew they had to. So honestly, that's it.
Makes sense. Jim, what about you? So why'd you become a nutritionist? I know you've been a nutritionist for 37 years.
29 at the professional
29,
level.
okay.
But I picked up my first book on nutrition at the age of 20 in 1977 because I had reached a point in my life where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired all the time, and the medical establishment was not helping me. And so I was blessed with a beautiful thought that came to mind. I'm going to take responsibility for my own health. And the only way I knew how to begin to do that was to educate myself. And that started in 1977, and it's never stopped. one of the things I've learned along the way is no matter how much you think you know, there's no end to learning. None of us will ever learn it all, and so I'm continuing to learn to this day, and I'm very much looking forward to what Alex and Lynette and Nick have to offer, as well as people in the audience. I teach people to follow your enthusiasm, and I've done that myself. I have followed my enthusiasm, and I've kind of got a combination of evangelical spirit and true deep passion for talking to people about nutrition and empowering people to know what they can do to improve their health through what they're eating and drinking every day.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm impressed by your memory, by the way. So Nick, so you were an MMA fighter, so how did your eating habits change over the course of your career, and how did it affect your performance?
Yeah. So I started fighting late in life. I was a very highly competitive wrestler in high school and college, and didn't do anything for a number of years. Ended up training with a trainer who trained a lot of UFC guys, and my dad was a pro boxer, so I knew a bit of that, and a couple brothers, so we boxed when we were kids. I beat up one of the UFC guys one time. We were in a training session, so he said, you should start fighting, and I needed an outlet to change some probably bad habits, I guess would be a good way to say it, and be healthy. And so, when I first started training and fighting, I was always big into eating healthy. I thought I was, which to me was like, I call it the Whole Foods healthy eater, which is like, if it's from Whole Foods, it's healthy. If it's whole wheat, that's really healthy, and this and that, and thought I knew enough. And Chipotle was a main staple in Whole Foods. And a few years into my career, I was doing 2-a-day training sessions, so training 3 to 5 hours a day, 6 days a week, and my body just broke down. I had numerous surgeries. I was constantly getting sick. At the point where it was about a week to 10 days that I was unable to leave my place. I had, honest to God, was so exhausted I just laid there for about 7-8 days. And I was like, God, this shit's got to change. This is not, this isn't right. And so through that, I was fortunate enough, around the time, one of my trainers introduced me to a personal chef who worked with professional athletes. And she started dropping off meals to my house on Sundays in a garbage sack she made. They were right portions. It was true healthy eating. And the difference was incredible, almost immediate. And it wasn't only physical performance, it was mental performance at my job, it was my energy, it was my sleep. And it was truly astounded by the change it made. And from that point on, that eating style allowed me to, I actually trained less, performed much better. I was 16-0 as a fighter, but I think there's probably about 10 fights after that kind of change, and I was beating people up really well. and not only that, but through that service, I realized I was saving about 2.5 hours, 2-3 hours a day, and with that time, over the course of the next 5-6 years, I learned how to hunt elk with a bow and arrow. I learned how to kiteboard. I did 130 or 40 solo skydives, and a number of other things that just really made me aware, wow, first nutrition is incredibly important, and there's ways you can do it and save yourself time so you can, learn and become a fuller individual, have a better life.
Nice. All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper into it. So Lynette, I know a lot of people who are interested in going paleo, but they always hit challenges when they get started and then give up. So what advice would you have for people who want to start going paleo?
Also, what is paleo?
All right, yeah. What is paleo? Good question.
Paleo is focusing on more whole, earth-grown, nutrient-dense foods, kind of eliminating the processed carbs and sugar, the processed oils, just feeding your body stuff that nature is meant to feed us. And challenges, my biggest challenges were I have a major sweet tooth, so my biggest advice would probably be to not deprive yourself of anything, because all these fad diets that people go on, they deprive themselves of all this junk food that they love. But for me, the biggest thing was starting to bake paleo treats and eliminating grains and using more coconut flour, almond meal, things like that, and actually increasing my fat intake by a lot to be my new source of energy instead of the carbs. which changed everything because I felt that much better. But I didn't deprive myself of anything. I ate everything I wanted to eat, but I just made it paleo. You can literally go on Google and say paleo lasagna, paleo anything, and you can make something that you love, but it's still healthy. So that would be my biggest tip.
How'd you up the fat intake?
Like what it consists of?
Yeah, how'd you increase fat by that much?
A lot of butter, a lot of avocados, coconut oil was a big one, chia seeds, olive oil on my salads. I mean, any fat that I could get my hands on.
Lard as well?
Lard. I mean, I recently started eating pork. I used to not, just because pigs are my favorite animal. No religious reasons. But I started cooking my eggs in bacon fat, started eating bacon, which is new for me. But I'm all for it because that's healthy, and it's healthy fats instead of the processed. Any processed fats that aren't natural are probably the bad fats. So if you focus on the healthy fats, it dramatically changes your health, in my experience.
Nice. Okay. So Alex, let's dive into some of the athletes. What are some of the weirder eating habits of some of the professional athletes that you've worked with?
I won't name names, so I won't try. A lot of athletes I find have, for instance, one night they had 3 scoops of ice cream. The next day they played a really good game. So now they have to have 3 scoops of ice cream the night before every single game. It has to be the same flavor. It has to be, so sometimes it's hard and you have to, allow those things because it's all mental and there's a lot of mental challenges that go along with having, playing a sport like that professionally. But mostly it's just the routines, those types of foods. I don't see anything too weird outside of that, but a lot of people, a lot of players, a lot of Hawks, a handful of them have some really funny routines. Sundays, it all has to be a certain number, just really funny things like that. Like, I need a cookie, I have to have a cookie. So.
Do you think it works? Does it help them?
You know what? Mentally, yeah, for sure. It does. It does. They have to have it. They're gonna feel off if they don't. And then you just get them in their off season, trying to get off of that habit. And we don't make any major changes to what they do. So get them in the off season, get them off of something bad. Try to make their routine a little bit better, a little more healthy for them, and see what you can do. And just do the best you can outside of that.
So Jim, how do people know if they're actually getting the right nutrition? And I don't know if this, I guess, how do we measure our nutrition? What are the practices that you recommend?
Well, subjectively, I think we know we're getting our nutrition right when we're completely satisfied with what we're eating and we don't have a nagging sense that something is missing. And you finish a full meal and you can go, as an adult, 4 or 5 hours before you begin to feel hungry. And especially you're not opening up the refrigerator an hour after you've eaten a full meal and your stomach is still full and you look inside the refrigerator and I need something, don't know what it is, but something is missing. Americans, most Americans don't lack quantity of food, but the choices they make, the quality of the food, and also the specific choices, even when it is good quality. Often people they're not satisfying the nutritional needs of their body very well, and this will manifest in a lot of ways, such as someone not feeling satisfied for very long after eating a meal. An hour or 2 or 3 later, they're looking for more food, even though the quantity of food that they had at their last meal wasn't lacking. So we know we're getting our nutrition right when we feel completely satisfied with what we're eating, and also when we're completely free of cravings, especially for cravings for something that is basically unhealthy, like sugar or refined carbohydrates or caffeine or alcohol or anything else that can have a drug-like effect on us. Also, taking an assessment of the direction of your health. Are you on an upswing? Are you experiencing more energy, more alertness, more mental clarity, and also the quality of the energy is important too. I think we know we're getting our nutrition right when we're moving more toward peaceful, calm energy rather than a nervous, on-edge, stimulated type of energy. And then from an objective standpoint, I think we can know we're getting our nutrition right by looking at some standard of care lab values going beyond the laboratory reference range. Laboratory reference ranges are never a reflection of what is healthy. Laboratory reference ranges are only at best ever a reflection of what is common.
Are these for
But not what is
blood
healthy.
test results?
Yeah, for blood test results. I'm talking about basic standard of care blood test results. The blood chemistry, which these days most labs call the comprehensive metabolic profile, or the CMP. What that is it's basic blood chemistry factors that are relevant for everybody. Your blood sugar level, electrolyte minerals, certain blood proteins, a number of metabolic enzymes, kidney assessment factors such as creatinine and BUN, which are creatinine is the major byproduct of muscle metabolism, and BUN, blood urea nitrogen, is the primary byproduct from protein metabolism, but they're used in the medical establishment as kidney assessment factors. But a CBC, which is a complete blood count, looking at the white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. For instance, Nick, when you were feeling wiped out from overtraining, I would bet the house that you had a very low white blood cell count. The white blood cell count will go low, typically well below 4 when someone is overtraining. But also what's part of standard of care blood testing is the lipid panel. Triglycerides, and everybody wants to know what their cholesterol level is. What I've learned and what I teach over the years is that just within the basic standard of care blood test, there are some values that can suggest to me how well someone is getting their nutrition right. For instance, the BUN, blood urea nitrogen, the medical establishment really only ever uses that as a kidney assessment factor because it's up to the kidneys to excrete that. But it's that BUN is on every basic blood chemistry panel, or the comprehensive metabolic panel, or even some labs call it the basic metabolic panel. But that comes from protein metabolism. And the typical lab reference range for BUN is usually about 7 on the low end and 25 on the higher end. But my reference range that I've used for many years now that are a reflection of what is healthy rather than what is common is 12 to 21. And when I see that someone has a BUN within the range of 12 to 21, that suggests to me that they very likely might be getting enough protein for their metabolism. But there are many other factors that can influence BUN, and so it's not always that clear cut. But I always, when I'm looking at blood test results, I always like to keep it simple, keep it basic, and always consider the nutritional factors that have the biggest influence on that lab value.
Wait, so how would someone go about finding what you consider to be the optimal blood metric result?
Well, they have to come to me because what I teach is, unfortunately, is not. It's not. There are no books that you can find this out about until I write my book. But this is something I've been working on for years after evaluating thousands and thousands of blood test results. A long time ago, I started working on reference ranges that are more of a reflection of what is healthy rather than what is common. Yeah. Getting back to conventional lab reference ranges, are you all aware there is not even any universal medical standard for laboratory reference ranges, except for one value, the upper end of cholesterol. The drug companies have done a great job getting all the labs around the country on board. If your cholesterol level is above 200, you will get tagged as being high. But as far as all other upper and lower ends of reference ranges, there are no universal medical standards. It's up to each individual lab to set their own reference ranges. And how do the labs set their reference ranges? Well, these are statistical averages based on the patient population that lab has been testing. And who are the people that go most often to have their blood tested. At the very least, people with pre-existing health problems, people that have lost a significant ability to maintain homeostasis to some degree, okay, which is the medical term for balance. We don't want any of our basic blood chemistry factors to be too high or too low. Either is a problem. But if you're setting your reference ranges based on a population of people that have already lost a significant ability to maintain that homeostasis, the problem I have with lab reference ranges is they're way too wide to be representative of what is healthy. So all of my reference ranges that I've established over the years are tighter. So for instance, a typical lab reference range for BUN is 7 to 25. My reference range is 12 to 21. And I've done that with almost all of the standard lab values that you'll see on a blood test.
Interesting. So
what's also interesting is how that number shifts, because if health keeps going the way it is, and they're looking at reference ranges as statistical value, that number is going to go this way and slide down, whereas, and then all the health ranges are going to go along with it. So the optimum that they're saying, not based on yours, but the optimum that they're saying within their reference range is not going to keep shifting down.
Well, you know what's happening is the laboratory reference ranges are getting wider and wider, and some lab reference ranges are so ridiculously wide as to be irresponsible and almost on the verge of criminally misleading. A prime example of that is fasting insulin. Okay, Quest Labs, the two big national labs are Quest and LabCorp. Quest had, up until a few years ago, they had as the upper end of their lab reference range for fasting insulin. Now, insulin is a hormone produced in our pancreas and secreted primarily in response to carbohydrate consumption. And insulin is primarily a blood sugar lowering hormone, but it's also a fat storing hormone. It's also an anabolic hormone. We need some insulin in our bloodstream. My teaching has, from my experience, when people are getting their nutrition right and they're experiencing health on an upswing, I've never seen anybody with a fasting insulin level above 5. And Quest used to use as their upper end for the fasting insulin, anything less than 17 was considered so-called normal. They recently, within the last year, they recently increased that to anything less than 23 now is so-called normal. And LabCorp uses an upper end of insulin of 24. You show me someone with a fasting insulin level of 20, and that person has got some serious health problems. That is not a healthy person. That is someone who is very likely already a type 2 insulin resistant diabetic, or they're very close to that. And if they don't have that problem, they've got other problems.
it sounds like you need to publish this better standards. I think we kind of left here with don't trust your blood test results, but we're not quite sure yet what the right results are.
Do you have an internet site that you have blog on?
No, I'm rather a low-tech guy.
All right, let's jump over. Let's go back to Nick. So
You can go right in.
all right, so as a fighter, what did you do to bulk up during your training season? So what was your regimen and your supplements? I guess also, can you just touch on nutrient timing? I know people that ask
to bulk up prior to a fight,
Yeah.
you know, my regimen primarily consisted, eating often, okay, obviously, getting enough protein, a lot of fats. I have breakfast shake, protein shake first thing in the morning, always. I get 25 grams of protein in your body and some simple sugars, get your metabolism going, replace the glycogen also. The protein is very important for cognitive function. So, I mean, like within 20, 30 minutes, you want to grab that and get it going. And then, I get, like nuts or almonds or whatever, and a Greek yogurt mid-morning. I usually had boxing sessions from, like 10:30, 11 to 12 to 1. And after that, I'd have a post-workout shake. I dialed this in from this is probably completely wrong. So, the one that I used, I had a whey protein, high quality whey protein. I put in some scoops of Gatorade for the quick maltodextrose and dextrose for the sugars to replace the glycogen, so I can trade in the afternoon.
You were 16-0, right?
I was. Yeah.
It was working.
L-glutamine. L-glutamine was an important factor as well. I hope. I think. with me. And then I took, I found this article that talked about the anti-inflammatory response after workout, so I started taking a couple fish oils, some greens pills, and a high-potency multivitamin right afterwards too, to reduce inflammation, get the body repairing faster. And I found that, and so that was post-workout one, and then I'd have lunch with my chef, thankfully, after that, and then I'd have a mid-afternoon snack, might be like a protein bar, like organic type of zone bar, something like that. And then before I go to my training session 2, might be a PB&J, to be honest with you. And then hit that session.
No, I hope that peanut butter was organic.
Oh yeah, I actually, for the most part, most of the time.
So wait, was that before fights? You have a peanut butter jelly?
Sometimes before fights too. Yeah, I liked it. They gave me energy. I felt like comfort, and I'd go.
Alex, what would you
after
have
I worked
doing
out
if he was your?
Athletes have their rituals, man.
And then I had a post-workout shake, and then a dinner, and then like a casein long digesting protein at night. While your body's, it's the best time your body's repairing itself and all that. So melatonin with this post, night shake. I would put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, and in a 6 or 8 week training camp, and then cut it down real fast right before the weigh-in.
Can I ask?
It's a science
Yeah.
to it. There's a lot of
Nick, did you have a specific target caloric intake that you were going for?
I didn't really track calories.
Track your appetite.
I ate till you're full, and if you're eating the right types of ingredients, you don't have to track that shit. You don't have to track anything. You eat till you're full, you eat till you enjoy it, and your body will naturally do what you want it to do a lot of times. I was eating a lot, I was burning a shitload of calories. So it worked out, And to the athletes thing, real quick, I just wanted to mention this because it's a funny story. A good friend of mine, he was a national champion wrestler in college, and he was just a complete badass. And he would go the whole season without, he had a shirt that he wore to the tournaments. He would not wash his shirt for the entire season, period. And by towards the end of the season, that shirt would literally start creeping away from him. It was so disgusting. He's like, it's my shirt. I'm like, get away from me.
So Alex, I guess along the same lines, what do you tell athletes to eat before games? What's the perfect thing to eat right before a game?
How long before the game?
Let's say, I don't know, what do people eat before games?
If we're talking a anaerobic sport like hockey or football, not like marathon running or anything, a typical day you'd wake up, you'd have breakfast, you'd do whatever you need to do, and then there would be a meal that was pretty large with a good amount of carbohydrates, especially for such a sport like hockey. Good amount of carbohydrates, but also balanced fat and protein. A little while after that, you take a nice little nap, wake up, have a snack, and then immediately right before the game, it also depends very highly on the athlete. Starting any sort of carbohydrate that's sugar-based is not recommended until immediately right before the game. So when they're doing a sports drink, you don't want them to start taking in a sports drink and then their blood sugar drops before the start of the game even happens. So during warm-ups they can start that. I do prefer things like, I don't know if you guys ever heard of a product called Generation UCAN. It's a resistant starch, non-GMO, it's all safe. Of course it's not food, but it's a really nice starch that passes through the stomach really quickly so they don't get a stomach ache, but it also doesn't cause fluctuations in blood sugar, so I love them to take that right before the game and at a second period. And there's also some supplements that happen to give them a little boost, all mostly food-based or very active, clean nutrients.
What are the supplements?
Well, we actually created, in a compounding pharmacy, we created a supplement for them that just has a lot of, a nice blend of herbs and active B vitamins that give them a nice little boost. We call it pre-game energy, and it's awesome. But you can't buy it, unfortunately.
Next meetup, bring some samples.
Next meetup, pre-game energy, everyone's getting fired up. But a good, solid energy, a good, cool energy, not a jittery energy. So we do use a lot of herbs, food-based things. But yeah, they definitely do have a good amount of carbohydrate that day, and then the recovery is the most important part.
All right, let's come back to that actually.
Yeah.
But real fast, during the game, you said,
Yeah.
what do you allow them to eat and consume during the actual games?
Yeah, so during the game, during the second intermission, if we're talking hockey, they will have some sort of, most of the time, some sort of extra snack or carbohydrate source that's not going to put them in the drain, but they're obviously burning a lot then, so they're not going to be at risk of low blood sugar at that point. That Gatorade container surely does not have Gatorade in it, I'm telling you. So it's just a little special concoction of just a really clean carbohydrate, no artificial anything, some branched chain amino acids to keep them kind of going. So,
Nice.
yeah.
All right, Lynette. So a couple people asked about this. A point of confusion among paleo people is dairy. So someone wanted to know, what are the panel's thoughts on eating dairy? Like, is yogurt paleo? I know some people eat it, some people don't. What about cheese? Where does all this fall on the health scale?
So if you're strict paleo, usually dairy is not included. But what I would usually tell people, I would start with an elimination diet, eliminating dairy completely, and maybe slowly incorporate it and just see how your body feels. Me personally, I don't do much dairy. I do sometimes like goat cheese, mozzarella cheese. If you find a source for raw milk, I do that. But otherwise, like skim milk, regular cheese, your normal average American dairy, I stay away from. But if it works for you and you're not lactose intolerant and you've done the elimination diet and you feel fine eating dairy, then I would say it's okay.
What about like goat's milk? Goat's milk or these other cheeses?
I've never tried goat's milk, but I'm not opposed.
I just wondered if there's a difference with
Yeah.
the reaction that you get, the anti-inflammatory.
Once I do some experimentation, see how you
Yeah.
feel, because your body tells you. I mean, if you feel bloated, or some people break out. Like my mom can't eat or drink raw milk because she feels bloated, so she's not a candidate. But
That's
if it
the thing
works
with the
for you-
paleo, is that, so is it or is it not? And is goat milk, you know, because we
Right.
talk a lot at the office about paleo and paleo friendly and what is and what isn't, you know, and there's obviously a lot of variations to it.
Mhm.
And so I'm just curious, like,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
do
at
you
least
consider
me,
it
like
paleo?
I look at paleo as more of an overarching template. It's not, this is strictly paleo, you can't eat anything outside of this list right here.
Yeah.
I would say do an elimination diet, like everything, and then see how you feel. Maybe you can have some rice once in a while, maybe some raw milk or some
Yeah.
goat cheese if that works.
If inflammatory is an issue, because beyond lactose was the casein in the milk, try an A2 cow, and the milk is different, and it doesn't have the inflammatory effects of an A1 type cow. So like the blue Swiss cow, the Jersey cows, stay away from the Guernsey cows. And we'll talk more later.
Thank you.
Nice. All right, Nick. So we'll go back to you. A completely different topic. Nootropics. I know this is something you experiment with quite a bit, and I know the biohacking half of this group loves that topic. So, what are your thoughts on nootropic?
Well,
what
I've had
is a
to
nootropic?
experiment with nootropics because I found that I'm not nearly as smart as I thought I was when I started the company. And that is honest to God true. And so I look for anything.
Wait, first, what is it? Just in case people haven't heard.
A supplement or a substance that is shown by research to improve your cognitive ability, whether that's memory or your memory, your synapses and the electrical impulses that go through, your ability to retain information, to focus, things like that.
Yes.
You're reading this.
So, which is one that you use? Which is the most
Yeah,
effective one you use?
I remember, I use a number of them. So a lot of times with the nootropics, you do a stack of different ones, and you see how different ones fool around. And I'm actually fooling around with some new stacks now. It's based off of some things I read, but used paracetam was kind of a staple. It's like the old guard that probably anybody who knows about it knows. Let me quick notes. Sorry.
What neurotransmitter is that working?
Hell if I know.
It's not so much neurotransmitter, it's more, it increases the amount of oxygen flow that goes into the brain.
Thank you. Like nitric oxide is not a nootropic, but I took nitric oxide when I fought, and like the circulation of the blood, oxygen levels.
So
it
that's more of a
improves everything.
vasodilator, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually something as well that I like. Aniracetam, which is another racetam family.
So I guess for people who want to just start, where would you tell them to go?
I would go with like, if you do quick research, an aniracetam or paracetam, and then you're going to need choline because it can deplete it, and so you need a choline supplement to enable your body to use the nutrients in your mind.
Unless you eat a lot of eggs, be careful.
Egg?
You get locked jaw or jaw tension.
From
If you eat a lot of eggs,
Oh, if
the
you eat
eggs
eggs,
already
okay.
have choline in it.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're taking more choline, you're gonna get
Really?
pain in your jaw.
See, so some of these nootropics deplete your please, that's awesome. All day long. Nootropics deplete your choline levels, so you have to supplement it because of what they're doing. Alpha GPC is a great one for like the choline. I take L-theanine. I also take acetyl L-carnitine, alpha lipoic acid, which aren't necessarily nootropics, but they have a lot of benefits, including mind function. And the nitric oxide. Then there's prescription. I took for a while, but it's too expensive. Modafinil. There's a new version of it. It was like $500 a month, and I had a few months, and I started a business. And I don't have any money.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you do neurotransmitter testing or have anyone facilitate that for you?
No, so I really want to get a thinking cap, different learning caps. That do the stimulation that actually have been proven to shorten your the time that you learn a new skill like dramatically. I don't know if that answers your question, but neurotransmitter.
Like
No, I think
testing,
she's
like,
asking-
like if you're taking
No.
L-theanine, if you're taking like any sort of.
I journal. I kind of journal and see how
See how you
things.
feel?
Yeah,
Like, are there-
it's not. It's very
Are there
unscientific,
tests?
I
Do
guess.
players do this?
That is science.
Yeah,
That is science.
we don't-
You're learning
we
from
don't
your own
do-
experience.
Right.
That's
It
science.
takes a long time.
We don't do specifically neurotransmitter testing on our players. We do other testing, salivary testing, their gut health, their cortisol rhythms, and a very, very large panel of blood. We draw 8 or 9 tubes of blood right before they do physicals. So we're really good to them. And we do stool testing sometimes too for the guys doing it. We don't really do the neurotransmitter testing. However, just practitioners, other CCNs who do.
Yeah.
Just to gauge it. And we actually have started using a new test from a doctor in Germany who tests various things as far as candida, things in your gut, your overload, your toxicity levels, and all of your neurotransmitters. But we're trying to introduce it into the U.S. It's kind of a big secret now, so we might be doing that soon for the players.
Yeah, the other thing is just hydrating. Having enough water. If you're dehydrated at all, that immediately affects like your cognitive ability
Yeah.
substantially.
So I guess interesting thing here then.
Drawing all that blood,
Yeah.
right?
It's a
They
lot
get
of blood.
breakfast afterwards. Come on, they're all right.
So I guess interesting thing though is if you're going to be taking nootropics, it sounds like you can take neurotransmitter tests. You can go find someone who can do a test and tell you if that's going to be an effective supplement. Is that true?
Yeah, and then just like testing and retesting just to make sure it's safe for you and that you're not overdoing anything. Obviously, you have a lot of one thing, you might be depleting the other. So you just want to be as safe as possible.
Before and after, or during while you're taking it?
Before, a little bit after, a little bit more after.
Sure.
You're always fine tuning and adjusting what you're taking.
You can also play with dual MBAC as a nice little
Yeah,
app
I mean, yeah.
as well, because that actually has been shown to increase fluid thinking.
Yeah.
And if your neurotransmitter, if the nootropics are actually working, you'll see increase in that.
Nice. So wait, Jim, so
mind aware.
So one thing Alex had mentioned was gut health, and I know you talk a lot about probiotics. Can you kind of talk a little bit about where do you recommend people start with probiotics and what strands? How do you know what strand to target?
My teaching is to start with foods that are naturally rich in probiotics, like cultured vegetables especially. And for people that do well with dairy, kefir and yogurt. I especially like kefir because it's got a much broader array of probiotics than you get from yogurt or typically than what is found in cultured vegetables too. Kefir it's a combination of friendly bacteria and friendly yeast. Yogurt, for instance, is typically made with just about 4 strains of friendly bacteria. But kefir typically has more than a dozen strains of friendly bacteria and some friendly yeast, which are especially helpful for someone if they're eating foods that have antibiotic residues, or if someone is taking some type of antibiotic treatment for something. So
How much-
question over there?
Oh, yeah.
In terms of preparing food, so both vegetables, for instance, would you suggest always steaming them, or no?
No, I hardly ever use the word always in regard to anything.
Frequently.
Well, steaming is a good way to prepare vegetables. Depending on the vegetable, consuming it raw, consuming it juiced, consuming it fermented, consuming it in soups or stews. There's a lot of different ways, but steaming is a good way to cook your vegetables if you like it that way. Yes.
If you don't like vegetables, you don't eat a lot of them. What do you find like the?
Well, you're almost certainly in protein fat.
No, not that I do. I like some vegetables, but like the greens pills, I take a ton, a lot of greens pills, and they say there's 24 servings of vegetables. Is that even relatable? Is it as good as having that many servings of vegetables? Do you get what you need to from greens
No,
pills?
supplements are supplements. They have their place, but to really build health, to realize optimum health and performance, my teaching is you want to eat as much fresh food as possible. The more food is refined and processed, the more you lose something of the essence of what that food initially had in it. For instance, all these green supplement powders that, like you said, it's like a scoop of a green powder is supposed to be equal to 5 or 24 servings of vegetables. Well, not by my standards and not by my way of thinking. The most underappreciated nutrient in all vegetables and fruits is the water. That's the best quality, or one of the best quality waters we can put into our body. And all vegetables and fruits are mostly water, and that's cellular water. That's water incorporated into a living system, living cells. And that water that's in that vegetable or fruit has properties to it similar to our own cellular water. We're mostly water too. And so I think we don't want to take the water content of vegetable and fruit nutrition for granted. Yeah, the vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and antioxidants that you can concentrate by dehydrating the vegetables of their water content, that has value too. But I'm not a fan of those green powder supplements as much as I'm a fan of eating whole vegetables or juicing the vegetables to create a concentrated amount of the vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and antioxidants, and also the water. What we call vegetable juice could also be called concentrated vegetable water.
Alex, I guess along that, how would someone here get their gut health tested?
You can do it various ways just to get a general idea. I know you're talking about the CBC. If you get that with the differential, an easy thing to do is you have the monocytes, the eosinophils, and the basophils, and if you add those three numbers up, they should be less than 10. That's kind of a good sign for us that there's, if there's maybe overall inflammation.
There's no dysbiosis.
Right. So that's just a good indicator. However, we do use saliva tests, salivary IgA, which sort of gives you the overall status of your intestinal integrity, and we test for gluten sensitivity sometimes too. So those are really nice ways. The stool test is a really nice way too, because you can look at every single thing that's going on in the guts and what's coming out of it. So as much as it's icky to pick through your poo, it can tell you a lot of really great information.
Nice. So I guess at this point we're like halfway through. Let's open it up. Anyone have questions for one of the panelists? Yeah.
Alex, the herbs that you're talking about, are those adaptogenic herbs?
Some of them.
Okay.
Some of them.
Okay. And then Jim, with kefir, do you feel like the pasteurization process kills any of the beneficial bacteria, or is it still left in the kefir?
Well, it will if it's if the milk is originally from a healthy animal. When it's in a raw state, there's a native flora, friendly bacteria there that can be very beneficial for our gut health. So I am an enthusiastic advocate for raw dairy products from healthy animals, whether they be raw cow's milk or goat's milk or sheep's milk or camel's milk or mare milk, that's milk from a horse. That
Sounds delicious.
Well, there are nourishing traditions all over the world for people consuming dairy products from a variety of animals. But I think if you are consuming pasteurized dairy products, I think it's good to add some life back to the dairy, because pasteurization it does kill a lot. It heat damages a lot of the nutrient value, but you also, of course, you'll kill the native flora that's in there, and of course that's what they want to do with pasteurization.
So commercial kefir that you would get at Whole Foods probably isn't as good as something you would get from an independent person?
Yeah,
Taking it
if
from
you
raw dairy?
Chicagoland is rich in raw dairy-based food co-ops. There's Nature's Lunchbox and Sherry Giacchetto, who started the whole raw dairy-based food co-op thing back in 2000. Her Fresh from the Farm raw dairy-based food co-op is going strong. And there's Richard Hebron and his family farms, and there's Anatoly Zarkin and his Sunrise Buyers Club up north, based in Wheeling. But Chicagoland is rich in dairy-based and raw dairy-based food co-ops.
Very cool. Yeah.
Do you make your own kefir then? Do you get raw milk and make your own kefir?
No, I get my kefir from Nature's Lunchbox, raw dairy-based food co-op, which you can access them. Is everybody here familiar with farmmatch.com? That website, farmmatch.com. It's a website that helps people to connect directly with farmers. Get their foods fresh from the farm.
Not a dating site?
No. Very good, Mark. Very good. I thought it was too initially. Yeah, getting farmers together. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of the focus in this community is on increasing thyroid activity for specifically thyroid issues, but I was wondering if the same kind of protocols can be used to downregulate it as well for people that have too active of a thyroid.
I think that the healthiest way to downregulate thyroid is to eat some cruciferous vegetables on a regular basis, because they have a natural property that helps to turn down thyroid activity.
Or drink more fluoride.
Yeah, but the problem with fluoride is an effective way to turn down thyroid activity too. But in the process of doing that, you're also going to poison your brain, and you're going to poison your bones, and you're going to poison virtually all the enzyme systems in the body too.
So I guess real fast, so someone had asked in the sign-up list about the impact of low-carb dieting on thyroid function, specifically for girls, for women. So I don't know if either of you have experience, can kind of just talk through what the impact there is.
Yeah, I can just chime in. Me increasing my fat intake and decreasing my carb intake has only done good for me, and has increased my thyroid activity, especially coconut oil. If I don't eat enough fat in a day, I literally eat coconut oil by the tablespoon. But I just feel so much better eating fat now.
I'd like to comment also. I like to think of carbohydrates as the sort of spark to the fire. You kind of need that, and if people go too low carb in their diets, especially if they're being very active, you're going to really burn out your thyroid that way, and it's a really good way to start gaining more weight if that's your purpose. Specifically speaking to women, it seems like what we all want to do is lean out. So if you're working out, you're very active, you're trying to go super low carbohydrate, just really be aware of how low you're going. You always need to match your carbohydrate intake with your activity level. So yeah, doing too low carb it can burn you out.
What type of carbs do you recommend?
I like whole food carbs whenever possible. Starchy vegetables, fresh, raw fruits, pressed juices. Beets are a natural source of natural nitrates to help your oxygenation. Don't lose your legs. do a lot of beet juice with the Blackhawks.
Typical. Brown and close to the ground. So we want to go back.
What does that mean?
Brown and close to the ground. You know, they have corn, it's high, it's yellow.
Oh yeah.
Sweet potatoes
yeah.
are brown,
Sweet
they're close to the
potatoes,
ground.
butternut squash,
Stuff
spaghetti
like that.
squash.
Yeah.
Question for Alex. Do you do this individualized with the athlete, meaning the eating, the supplements, the monitoring per athlete individually?
Everyone is individual. As far as the food, we provide for the Blackhawks. We do provide the meals for their practices. However,
So they get their own meal for 22
No.
and 28?
no, it's a big bar, but they know what they're supposed to be eating. We do
Supposed
see
to, okay.
well, we give them only the best. But
Right.
we do see if you're talking specifically to the Blackhawks, we do see everyone on an individual basis and tailor everyone's supplements and recommendations
How often do
personally.
you look at their blood work?
2 or 3 times a year.
A year? Oh, okay. Are you familiar with Dr. Shanahan's work with the Lakers too? She does food supplements and did a good job with them.
That's awesome. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know about her work, but she does
Okay.
with them.
Yeah, we can send out a link. If you have a link, just send it to me.
Yeah. thank
What?
you.
If you have a link, just send it to me to the,
Oh, okay.
and I'll send it out to everyone.
I'd love to know.
Yeah.
So I thought Mary started with what would you say a minimum threshold for carbs is?
Minimum threshold for carbs.
Gosh, that's like a loaded question. Who are you? What are your goals? What are you doing every day? What's your, what state is your body in? So it really depends on what's going on with you.
So neither one of you have experimented at all with ketosis?
I have.
You have? And
But it's kind of a different question. I did for 3 months, this past January to.
And what is ketosis?
Do you want to go?
Sure. It's basically where you decrease your carb intake to maybe 20 to 50 grams of active carbs per day, and you increase your fat intake to 75-80% of your calories coming from fat. And you basically are a fat burner instead of a carb burner. You produce ketones instead of glucose, and that's a new form of energy. I felt amazing when I was on it, but I've been told that it's not recommended for long term, which is why I'm not currently on it. But I don't know, still researching, experimenting.
Because a lot of that's also genetic, who can and can't, because there's Jimmy Moore is one of my favorite guys for it, but also Ben Greenfield is a triathlete runner, and he's constantly on ketosis 20% of the time, because there is no essential carbohydrate. So that's part that's interesting, because the liver will create the glucose when you're that low and your insulin tries to
From
but it's
fat,
another
from
step.
fat
Exactly,
or
yeah,
protein.
exactly.
Right.
So
It's too much work.
yes. Well, the question now becomes: is ketones actually the preferred? And it's based on genetic, but is ketones actually the preferred fuel for the body rather than glucose?
Hey, Jim, I'm curious if you have thoughts on this.
Well, a fundamental teaching of mine is that in our very diverse human population, there is a spectrum of possibilities for human metabolism. And ultimately what that means is there is no one diet that's right for everybody. There are general nutritional practices having to do with food quality, eat real food, don't eat fake food, that apply to everybody. But as far as whether someone is going to achieve optimal performance and optimal health on a low-carb diet, someone else may achieve optimal performance and optimal health on a higher carb diet, getting 60 or 70% of their calories from carbs, that someone else may achieve optimal performance and optimum health getting only 10 or 15% of their
So how do you
calories from
determine
carbs.
what type you are?
Well, the first thing to have appreciation for is, again, in our very heterogeneous population on this planet, there is a spectrum of possibilities for human metabolism, or more specifically, nutrient metabolism. I think everybody has a general sense that some people are fast metabolizers and some people are slow metabolizers. Well, it gets a lot more involved than that. Some people are fast metabolizers for carbohydrates, but slow metabolizers for protein and fat, and vice versa. So there's a number of combinations there. And what I teach is that there is this spectrum of possibilities for nutrient metabolism, and on one end of the spectrum there are people very much like Nick and my friend Tom here, who are in protein fat metabolism. They thrive when they get most of their calories from high quality animal protein and animal fat. Yeah, they need some carbs too, but carbs is the smallest portion of their caloric intake. On the other end of the spectrum, some people are in carbometabolism. They have a biology that is actually best suited for them getting most of their calories from carbohydrates, maybe 50 to 70% of their calories from carbohydrates. They need protein and fat too, but that's secondary to their need for carbohydrates. And
well,
then,
how do you know which type you are? Is there a way for like everyone here?
No. Well, how do you know? First of all, listen.
See how we do with all these carbs.
First of all, my teaching is that everybody will naturally gravitate toward eating in harmony with their metabolism to some extent if they allow themselves to do so. What I encounter, which is very, very common, is people who have taken on somebody else's belief about what they should be eating. And someone who's on the carbometabolism side of the spectrum is forcing a low-carb diet on themselves, and they're never healthy. They never do well. That was especially true when I was the chief nutritionist at Dr. Mercola's clinic, because he had, when I first started working for him, he had a one-size-fits-all dietary strategy, which is basically a low-carb, mostly Atkins type of diet based on meat and vegetables. And many of his patients did well, but not all of them. Some of them did terrible on that. And it wasn't until we started doing metabolic nutrition that we started helping everybody. But more common is someone who's on the protein-fat metabolism side of the spectrum who is trying to force the dominant dietary dogma of our culture on themselves, which is we should all be eating a low-fat, plant-based diet. That is the dominant dietary dogma of our culture, especially as promoted by the USDA. And if someone is in protein-fat metabolism and they're trying to eat a low-fat, plant-based diet, I say good luck and God bless you, because that is not going to be in harmony with what your body has a biological need for. And so the simplest way to identify where you are on the spectrum of possibilities for nutrient metabolism in a very, very general way is think of when you're hungry, when you're really hungry, what do you think of eating? What real foods do you think of eating? Forget about pizza and junk foods and anything that has an addictive quality or addictive qualities to it. Forget about that. Think about real foods from nature: meats, seafood, eggs, dairy products, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes. The real food groups from nature. What do you think about eating? If someone is in protein-fat metabolism, my experience is that person is always going to, here's an example where there's an exception of always, but that person is always going to think about meats and seafood because they have a biological need to eat that. If someone's on the carbometabolism side of the spectrum and they're hungry, they're going to think of vegetables and fruits and probably some grains. And if someone's in the middle, someone's mixed, they'll probably think of meat and vegetables, a salad with some fish or some chicken or some eggs or some cheese along with it. But it's not difficult. Everybody has metabolism. Everybody is somewhere on the spectrum. And my experience is that everybody will naturally gravitate toward eating in harmony with their metabolism to some extent if they allow themselves to do so. What happens, very common in our culture, just to finish this, is people take in so much information and so many other opinions that they start living by that rather than their own experience. I like what Nick does with his journal. That's beautiful. I think we should all trust our own experience more than outside information and outside opinions.
Yeah, that's great.
So for the biohackers who are here, do you recommend at all things like metabolic typing tests?
I never liked the phrase metabolic typing, although that's what we did at Dr. Mercola's clinic. Later it was changed to nutritional typing. What my experience has taught me is that although some people do have a set, stable metabolic type, most people don't. Most people experience some significant shifting in their metabolism, so that's why rather than referring to metabolic types, I like to refer to teaching people to eat in harmony with their metabolism. Lord knows our lives are dynamic, and our metabolism can have some dynamic play to it. And if our metabolism is shifting, our nutritional needs are shifting. So you don't want to buy too much into the metabolic type concept.
Now let's go with Jake.
What do you think of intermittent fasting?
I guess who, Nick, you want to pick this one up? Just get started with this one.
Intermittent fasting, I did heavy fasting prior to weigh-ins. I can unforced.
Are you trying to make weight?
Fair enough. I guess who has experience with intermittent fasting? Alex?
I can, you can comment if you'd like.
If you try it and it enhances your well-being, by all means, go with it. In regard to specific nutritional practices, follow your enthusiasm. Try something out and pay attention to how it affects your energy, your mood, your mental clarity, your sleep quality, your digestion, your elimination.
Alex, what were you going to say?
Just along with that too, just being very intuitive about it. Sometimes people will try it, and especially if they're greatly physically or mentally stressed, it could cause even more stress, and they start to burn out. They get more tired. And it's all about just listening to your body. From my experience, men do a better job at intermittent fasting than females do, so I would never recommend it to my female clients, especially when you're trying to be more intuitive. But it does seem to work pretty nicely for men, just as long as you're not at the state of sort of burning out.
Do athletes intermittent fast? Do you do that with your clients?
Mine don't.
Okay.
But
just curious.
Cutting weight's like the most painful experience in the whole world.
What do you guys think about the FDA food pyramid? What's wrong with it? If anything's wrong with it, what would you change about it? How would you approach it?
What's right with it?
I was going to ask you about the ODA and RDA.
Lynette, you want to start with this one?
Are you talking about the original food pyramid? Because right now they changed it to My Plate.
Yeah, the new one. Yeah.
The new one?
Yeah. Or most people remember the old one, but yeah.
So the pyramid, the traditional one, has all the grains on the bottom. Should be the most. All your calories should, not all, but most of your calories should be from that. In my opinion, it should literally be upside down, more fat intake, eliminate a lot of those processed carbs. That's my opinion.
Well, there is a very strong built-in bias on the USDA dietary guidelines as of 2010, but the dominant dietary dogma in our culture now for almost 30 years has been everybody should be eating a low-fat, plant-based diet. And this is reflected in the USDA official dietary guidelines as of 2010. They promote that everybody of all ages, all children, all adults, should be getting 45 to 65% of your calories from carbohydrates. Would that work for you, Lynette?
No.
No, and it's not going to work for Nick, it's not going to work for Tom or Shelley, it's not going to work for a lot of people, but it will have value for some people. But making one-size-fits-all dietary recommendations is so ridiculous as to be laughable. It's nice that they give us a range of 45 to 65% of our calories should come from carbohydrates. And by the way, they also, part of those same guidelines, teach that we should be getting 10 to 35% of our calories from protein and 20 to no more than 35% of your calories from fat.
Basically, everything you learned in the 80s and 90s, you're supposed to do the opposite.
That's good advice.
That's what I think.
Yeah, back there.
So one of the major claims behind paleo and primal eating is that you optimize your gene expression. And I'm wondering if any of you have sequenced the genome of your athletes or your own genomes. It's not that expensive. It's about $1,000 now, 10 years since Human Genome Project. Some of the research has linked certain genes to certain, perhaps, nutritional or supplementation practices. I'm wondering if any of you have experience with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
I've never done a $1,000 test on any of my athletes for that. We have done like the 23andMe and then gotten that decoded and sent to a specialist who helped us read it, since we're very novice at those. So different things, I know you guys may have heard of MTHFR, different SNPs, 1298 and some other ones that help you determine, what part of that cycle is missing, and where do you need to fill in the gaps, and with what nutrients, or should you take active B vitamins, or are you okay with the non-active B vitamins, and are fortified grains poisoning you? So we've delved into that just slightly, but if you're focused on eating real food, and if you're taking supplements, doing most of them as whole food based supplements, then you're really not putting poison into your body, and you could just let your intuition take it from there.
You can do tons of things and like spend an incredible amount of money, but at the same time, if you just did like the 80-20 and like ate good foods that help.
Yeah, but this group is about the other 20%. I want to dive into this a little bit more because I think it's interesting. I don't know, there is someone who takes your genetic sequence from 23andMe and tells you nutritional advice from your genes?
Yeah, we have a couple people that we consult with that will just dig really deep into that process. After you do the 23andMe, we plug it into the one of those sites, and then we send those results to our specialist.
Gotcha. Is there a good resource for people to learn more about this link?
MTHFR.
What is it?
MTHFR.net, right? It's not com.
Look up Benjamin Lynch.
Dr. Ben Lynch is a really good resource.
The DNA diet is another one that talks about that.
I'm not familiar.
Book I read a while.
But there's so much to learn about it, and I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface as a society, let alone like little nutritionists from Chicago. So I really couldn't speak to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Lynch is pretty good on it.
Yeah.
I have a question. So a lot of time you hear do an elimination diet, see how you feel. So if you personally were starting an elimination diet, what would you choose to eat, and what would you look out for?
Good question. I guess let's just do that. Let's do a quick answer for everyone here.
Okay.
I would recommend focusing more on the proteins, the vegetables, kind of decreasing your sugar intake, including fruit, eliminating dairy, grains, candy, any of those sugars, processed grains, and maybe minimum, I would say, a month to see how good you can feel, because you might not even know how good you can feel. And then slowly incorporate some stuff, maybe, even like sushi once in a while with the rice, and just see how you feel, and maybe some dairy, see how you feel. Because the longer you go without that stuff, your body will react if it doesn't like it.
Alex, would you agree?
Yeah, the longer you for instance, if you get off gluten for a while, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, my body can tolerate it just as long as I eat it, and then if I don't eat it, then I start reacting to it. Well, you're giving your body a chance to heal, so a lot of your immune system lies in your guts, and if you take out the offenders, then it will heal and it will react. It'll mount an immune response. My preferred thing, I hope I'm dropping like some brand names, but I love the Standard Process 21-day purification kit. It's all food-based supplements and protein, and you're taking out the the dairy, the corn, the soy, the coffee, which is a major cross reactor to gluten, chocolate. I like to take out chocolate if I'm purifying. That could be really bad for people, and just giving your liver a break for a little while. And then reintroducing the foods one by one after the 21 days. Really reintroducing them and seeing how your body reacts.
First thing to eliminate on an elimination diet is any and all fake food, highly refined and processed food. Okay, so then if you have a commitment to real food, meats, seafood, fish and shellfish, and then eggs and dairy products, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes. The first food groups I would recommend that you eliminate are food groups that are not part of the paleo diet. They're grains and legumes, the products of agriculture. Eliminate those. By far the most common food allergies I've encountered in people over the years are allergies to corn and wheat. And I've worked with many people over the years who do wonderfully well completely eliminating gluten, wheat, rye, oats, or wheat, rye, barley, triticale, spelt, and kamut. Even if people are not manifesting symptoms, they do better when they eliminate that. And dairy is a problem for many people, but not for everybody. I've worked with many people over the years where dairy, raw dairy products from healthy animals can be a very valuable health-building food. But that would be one of the other food groups to consider giving up. And unfortunately, eggs. There's a lot of people with egg allergy. In fact, anybody know why egg allergy is prevalent? If you've had awareness of that, but I've looked at a lot of lab panels of food allergies, and egg very commonly comes up, and that's because of vaccines. Vaccines are typically made with egg albumin, and when you inject that into the person at a very young age, the immune system gets hypersensitized, especially to sterilized egg protein. But raw egg protein, in my experience, is a much better health building food.
Nice. All right, let's do 2 more questions, and then I've got a couple of rapid fire we'll close out with. So yeah, I know you've had your hand up for a while.
So we were talking about food intolerances. Do you have a way to test them? I've heard of ALCAT, and then what are your thoughts about that, or rotational diet, along with whether it's paleo or mixed?
Yeah, great question.
The simplest, most empowering way I know of to test for food allergies or intolerances, but especially allergies, is to do the pulse test. The pulse test is a very simple test where you get a baseline pulse reading in a very calm environment. You sit down and you get your baseline pulse. You take it for 1 full minute, and let's say your pulse is 60. Okay? Now you challenge yourself with something that you want to test to see if it's creating any allergic stress for your body. And you put it in your mouth for 30 seconds. And you don't swallow it. You just leave it in your mouth for 30 seconds. And after it's been in your mouth for 30 seconds, then you take your pulse again. And if your pulse goes up 4 or more beats per minute, that is considered a reliable indication that whatever you put in your mouth is creating some allergic stress for your body.
That's awesome.
It's known as the modified pulse test.
You can probably test that with a piece of chocolate or sugar or something.
Anything.
See how that goes. And then
Yeah.
So as you're taking the pulse, do you swallow whatever?
No, you don't. You never swallow it when you're doing the pulse test. And that's a simplified, modified version of a more elaborate pulse test, was developed by Dr. Arthur Koka back in the 1950s, where he had you taking your pulse 14 times a day.
And I know Dave Asper gave a talk at one of our previous meetups, and he mentioned that he has an app. He's always selling his product, but he has an app that
It's a free app.
Yeah.
Along the long lines of that, then, so you have an experience not with the ALCAT, but with the mediator release test?
No.
No.
All right.
What about rotational diet? Sorry.
Yeah, if you do have food allergies, the frequency of consumption is a fundamentally important factor, and so you may be fine consuming a food like once every 4 days, but any more than that, you may begin to manifest symptoms.
It's also really important to vary your diet in general, just not eating the same foods over and over again, not eating eggs every single day of the week, because you could develop an intolerance to those things. So just keep it varied, even with the vegetables.
Wait, so real fast, I didn't hear the answer. Did you mentioned ALCAT, right, and then blood sensitivity tests? Has anyone had experience with either of those as a means to get food sensitivities?
We've only tested as far as our things, just general things like eggs and milk and things like that. But if somebody is showing signs that they are intolerant to a lot of things, really the main focus for us is healing the intestines, because you should be able to tolerate these things, and you're just probably not for a specific reason. So if we have a client who really does want to do that testing, we focus on healing the gut first, and then we can do other things. The pulse test is a really fun thing too. If you ever have feel like you have heart palpitations after eating something that's pretty obvious that you're not tolerating it.
Let's do one more question.
Raise your hand if you have the best question.
Who's got the best question? All right, everyone yell them out at the same. No. All right, yeah, let's go right here.
Just really quick. We're talking about food allergies. Have you ever had any correlation? I don't know if any of you have ever read the Eat Right for Your Blood Type book.
Sure.
And is there, do you believe in it?
It doesn't work.
Oh, it doesn't work, okay.
No, not in my experience, and not in the experience of a number of colleagues that we gave, myself and a number of colleagues I have, we gave attention to that concept when it first came out in 1997, and Peter D'Adamo is a very good writer, and he's a very good salesman for that concept, and you don't want to completely disregard a person's blood type. There is some relevance there, but as far as basing an entire dietary strategies or meal plans on your blood type, there's nothing reliable about it. And it makes sense to me because our blood type has nothing to do with our metabolism. And the foods that are best for us and the foods that are not best for us are the foods that either are in harmony with our metabolism or the foods that throw our metabolism off, or more so the meals that throw our metabolism off. So having practiced the eat right for your blood type concept very faithfully for several years, I would never go back to that. But blood type, as I said, is not completely irrelevant, but it's a minor modifying factor. But Peter D'Adamo, he sold a lot of books and sold a lot of supplements and other products related to that concept. But I don't know anybody in the field of nutrition who actually gives attention to that anymore. Did you find any value
Well, I did a lot of expensive testing, and then I read the Eat Right for Your Blood Type book, and it said to stay away from wheat and gluten and carbs, and that's what all the testing told me too.
Are you blood type O?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you are. Yeah. Well, what I have found is that when people did do well on the Eat Right for Your Blood Type dietary recommendations, what I learned is that dietary strategy brought the person closer to eating in harmony with their metabolism. So you think you're doing better because you're eating more in harmony with your blood type, or you're eating right for your blood type. But I would bet that you're also on the protein-fat metabolism side of my spectrum of possibilities for nutrient metabolism, and eating the blood type diet that Peter D'Adamo recommends is bringing you closer to that, and that's really why you're feeling better.
Okay. I don't like, I'm in the same school of thought as far as eating right for your blood type, but one thing that I have found, and I just keep in the back of my head, is if I have an O blood type client, they usually tend not to do so well with grains. That's the only thing that's ever really stuck out for me.
All right, so like we can do this one last one, then we'll.
Super short one. As the people in the room who probably are most in tune with their diets that work best for them, for each of you, what do you guys cheat with, or what do you eat that you know you shouldn't?
This
Is
is
that
my next
short
question.
term or long term?
Literally, you just stole my next question.
As your indulgence.
All right, yeah. So Nick, you want to start?
Ice cream.
What's your cheat food?
Ice cream.
What flavor?
Yeah.
Oh man, I like actually vanilla bean with some chocolate syrup on there. Like, good stuff.
Jim.
Nothing. I don't.
No cheat food. Perfect.
No, I.
Super pure.
No, it's just like, I was the first 20 years of my life. I was chronically ill. I was a mess, and so when I started achieving higher levels of health, and when I achieved a very high level of health and sustained that for a long time, I've been on the other side of health, and I had ice cream and pizza. Up until I was 20 years old, my favorite foods were pizza, ice cream, fried chicken, fanny mae candy, fast food burgers, and French fries. I had that experience. It's not worth it. To me, each and every meal is an opportunity for me to nourish myself and support me being the healthiest Jim I could be at this time in my life. So that's I never have any interest in cheating.
Good luck following that. What's your cheat food?
I'm also perfect. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't do well with chocolate. Once in a while, I just kind of need it. I did a special test, like I had mentioned before, from Germany, and I use 5-HTP like it's going out of style. So I take a good amount of that via supplement format, and like 10 chocolate bars a day worth of it, and it makes me feel really nice. So, but once in a while I do get a little chocolate crave, and I'll rock it out.
I think it's in the female genes. I mean, it's one food that I learned many years ago. I never ask a woman to give up chocolate.
I'll give this a heartbeat. But maybe twice a month.
Lynette, what about you?
I would say that it also depends on what you consider cheating, because for me, cheating is eating the food that I sparingly eat, such as fruit and chocolate. But once in a while, of course, there's ice cream. I aim for like Brio gelato that has 5 ingredients. Talenti is the brand that I usually look for.
Yeah.
Or
That's exactly the same one.
What brand is that? Talenti.
Or is it- I might- oh, Talenti, okay.
There you go.
Look for
Takeaway.
the most expensive one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I never like cheat. I never eat corn syrup. I like look at all the ingredients of everything I'm eating. And once in a while I would do like sushi, and of course if I'm traveling I would probably eat some grains in a different country. But I mean, like I said before, I don't deprive myself of anything. I'm very happy with what I eat, and I don't feel the need to necessarily cheat.
I would like to say I never feel deprived.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll end. I have a couple of rapid fire questions. I got 5, so we'll run through those real fast, just down the line. So I guess opposite of that question, since you stole my question. So if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, there's only this one food, what would it be? What's like the perfect food for you? Lynette, you want to start on this one?
The first thing I want to say is chocolate. But I've actually thought of it.
Just one food. This has been the same since I was an infant, I'm sure. But just, well, maybe not grass-fed, but like a grass-fed, very lightly cooked piece of beef. I'm down.
Jim, what's your perfect food?
Raw eggs.
Yep. Steak. Steak? Yeah. Is it grass-fed?
Steak.
We'll make sure it's grass-fed if we ever come to that.
There you go. All right, so Nick, then coming the other way. What would the people closest to you say is your weirdest habit? Your weirdest health habit?
I think probably couple one is the incredible amount of pill bottles that are in my office, I guess, and supplements. Probably I do this thing after I work out where I steam and then I go to as cold as possible in the gym, shower for about a minute, steam, shower, jacuzzi, shower, out.
All right, Jim, what's your weirdest health habit?
That's easy. That's very easy. When I eat chicken, I eat it raw. That's the response. That's the response.
Topic we didn't get to cover.
Where do you get that chicken?
Alex, what about you? What's your weirdest health habit?
Most
I
of the
think I
time,
do is
no.
weird.
No,
Come on, it's all normal. I get a lot of flack for bone broth, but I don't think that's too weird. But I do. I buy bird grit, like bird sand, put it in the bottom of my shoes, and I go for like a walk for 20 minutes barefoot, and then throw the bird grit on my weeds. Nice way to detox.
What
so
is
yeah,
bird grit?
apparently it's the stuff that sits at the bottom of like a bird cage. Sometimes you'll see it's like anise. It's like anise sometimes.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's like the birds in that's at the bottom of the cage. They kind of chew on it to sharpen their beaks. A little scoop in each shoe. A little detox.
All right, Lynette, what's your...
It probably won't be weird with this crowd, but putting butter in my coffee and blending that, people think that's the strangest thing. They're like, you eat so much fat, but you're so skinny. Like, that's why. But I mean, another weird thing, probably, I eat a lot of green things. Like, I put liquid chlorophyll in my water and drink it. They're like, what are you drinking? Just green everything.
Oh, that's great. All right, so then I'll start with you this time. So what's your favorite resource or book for getting the latest in nutrition research? Like, how do you stay on top of nutrition? What's your number one resource?
I follow like Mark Sisson, Chris Kresser, so I'm subscribed to all of that stuff. Get those emails, read those if they spark my interest as they come in. Books, I would say my favorite one is The Primal Blueprint. That's what got me started, and that's the one I usually recommend to people if they ask. But usually just online stuff. Do some searches of whatever the topic is, and I find stuff.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do one online resource, or like one resource for nutrition research, and one book that you'd recommend. Everyone here, read and follow.
One book, I think, Digestive Health with Real Food, I think it's called, by, I don't even know how to say her name, but I love her dearly. Julie Jacob, maybe. She's great. Digestive Health with Real Food, that's my book. Online, that's really tough. I feel like I was sort of mentioning this before we sat up here. I use people like Rob Wolf or Mark Sisson as my sort of Wikipedia, so they turn me on to the things that I then dig myself like knee deep into research about, because I always want to make sure it's backed by science and then just kind of seeing what's out there. So I wouldn't stick with really one online source. It just, you really have to do your work, or pay someone like Jim to tell it all to you.
All right, so Jim, top book, top resource.
If I had to recommend one book on nutrition that, to me, it's a book of timeless value, I would recommend Nutrition in Your Mind by Dr. George Watson, which was originally written in 1972. Dr. Watson was one of the pioneering researchers in human metabolism and human nutrition. He made a huge contribution to the School of Metabolic Nutrition, and his book is a wonderful read. He was a good writer, and he teaches through case histories. So he really brings his teachings to life. And then as far as a website, there's no one website that I'm really enthusiastic about, except for Dr. Norman Robillard, who's a microbiologist. He started something called the Digestive Health Institute, digestivehealth.org. He's got some interesting research on there in regard to what he calls the fermentation potential of foods, and how his focus is on which foods feed dysbiosis most of all, feed what used to be called IBS and more recently is now being labeled as SIBO, which is an acronym for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Can I add two? I'm sorry, you said one online, one book.
One more.
But for those people who are into like the brain stuff, or the neurotransmitters, the Nutrient Power is a really phenomenal book.
William Walsh.
Yeah, he's great. I love that book. I could reread that. Like,
Nutrient Power?
Nutrient Power.
Yeah, but William Walsh.
I don't remember the book that I read, but I like it. I like precision. I used to read a lot of precision nutrition. Dr. John Berardi, his name is, and then I'd send a number of things online. But as far as books, I read a few here and there, but it wasn't as in depth. And I like these books. There's a book called Easy Strength. It's actually really cool. That talks about latest and greatest in training, how you have powerlifters who are running ultramarathons, and how you're able to do that, like your heart rate low, your breathing things, a lot of yoga, meditation things that are incorporated while you're training, and it's really, I thought, incredible stuff.
What's it called now?
Easy Strength by John Pavel, and they're like techniques that the Russians used in the 80s when they were just kicking the shit.
By Pavel? Pavel
Pavel,
yeah.
John Pavel.
Oh, okay. That's
Easy Strength is a book. And there's another one, I can't remember the name, but basically it talks about, I used to do yoga when I was fighting, but use a lot of techniques that use in yoga while you're working out, even at high intensity levels.
Yeah, sure.
And it shows people that are running at dead sprints and keeping a resting heart rate within an optimal range, so they're able to do it for extenuous long times. My youngest brother, who was a two-time national champion wrestler in college, was at West Point, and they used to do studies with him. I put him on an incline treadmill and get his heart rate, 180 plus, and then they had all these things hooked up to him, and they give him a minute to meditate, to think about reducing his heart rate, reducing his internal body temperature, and all this. Yeah. He got to a point where he was able to get it almost down to the resting heart rate range within a minute. Intense exercise.
Yeah, I tried to do that too.
Yeah, and he talked about he worked out didn't work out as hard as a lot of the guys on the wrestling team. He wasn't going extra, going crazy. He never gassed. He made a national title fight, and cool, calm, performed. Won 81 matches, last 81 matches, and he taught me a lot about fighting. I started just listen to Sarah McLaughlin before fights and shit. Yeah, I felt great. Yeah. And I beat him in the third round. And I feel amazing. It's just nuts.
Yeah. It's your nervous system. So your lactate levels are low, and your
adrenaline, the adrenaline spikes and all that. It's crazy.
Easy eating. What's it called?
Easy Strength.
Easy Strength. All right, so then Nick, if you could improve one thing in your own diet, what would you change? Like one
Discipline, just having discipline. More.
discipline for what specifically?
Ice cream rally. I mean, popsicles too. So I have a tendency to wake up in the middle of the night and I grab popsicles and start my fix.
So Jim, this might be a
Yes,
tough one.
no,
for you.
there is something.
Okay.
Sometimes I eat too late at night, and I would improve that.
When would you want to stop?
I would like to stop about 3 hours before I go to bed, rather than sometimes I will eat an hour before I go to bed, or sometimes even a half hour before I go to bed.
That's a great one. Alex?
Discipline. Or no, what is this, the word, what I would improve?
What would you improve in your own diet?
Oh my goodness. I think I have a really nice diet. I just need to focus more on healing. I have a very, let's say, poor family gut history, and various practitioners would say that my gut stuff, in complete honesty, all come from up here. So I would focus on improving my health and my diet by being more mindful and focusing more on mental health stuff so that everything else could heal.
Interesting answer. Cool. Lynette, what would you improve?
I would incorporate more vegetables probably. I'm not sure if I focus on getting my fat intake, but maybe not the vegetables. So increasing vegetable intake, decreasing chocolate intake. But my minimum is 85%, so it's not completely bad.
Nice. All right, so the last question, and everyone has to have a different answer. So Lynette, we'll start with you. What's one actionable takeaway that everyone here could start doing tomorrow that will improve their own health and performance for athletes?
I would say eat more healthy fats and avoid the processed bad carbs, the fake food.
All right, so boost fat, healthy fats, decrease carbs, or processed carbs.
Processed carbs.
Since I'm representing the athletes here, I would say really focus on finding your carbohydrate sweet spot as far as matching your carbohydrate intake to your activity level.
So what would someone do tomorrow to start doing that?
Gosh, I guess it depends on where you're at, but
Beginner.
Mm-hmm. Journal. Grab a journal, see how you feel, see how you recover. Start at the bottom and work up from there. I like to do a reset button sort of with the athletes right now as they're heading into preseason. Their recovery shakes, for instance, are not nearly as hefty as they are in season and playoffs. So we start small and then work it up slowly from there until they feel like, they're not losing their legs, they're recovering very well, they're sleeping well. So carbs fuel your sleep too. That's very important. Always carbs at dinner time.
So food journal, you think, is something that everyone should start? Is it a food journal or a food response journal?
You can do a food response journal. It's a really good way to, figure out what you're tolerating and not tolerating, but finding your carbohydrate sweet spot, just specifically for the athletes out there and anyone who's active, is start low and work up from there until you feel good. Or if you feel like you're too low right now, just boost it a little bit, by a little handful a day, and see how you respond as far as your sleep and your guts and how your energy is feeling.
All right, find your carb sweet spot. Or sweet spot. Jim, what is your actionable takeaway?
For anybody who feels that they absolutely need to eat meat on a daily basis, someone I would call in protein fat metabolism, when you have a variety of foods in front of you, eat your meat first. When we have a variety of foods in front of us, the order in which we eat our foods can matter. And with some people, it matters a lot. Sometimes it matters dramatically, and with other people, it doesn't matter so much. But for people on the carbo-metabolism side of the spectrum, don't eat your meat first. If you're sitting down to a meal that has some vegetables, a salad, some fruit, eat that first. That's a big part of eating in harmony with your metabolism. Always put into your body the most metabolically important food for your metabolism first. Just give that a try if you've never done that before. But giving some attention to the order in which you eat your food can really be very valuable, rather than eating your food haphazardly, which is what I see a lot of people doing. They just eat whatever, they eat whatever is in front of them first, or whatever someone gives them first. But giving some attention to that can be very valuable.
It was in that book, I don't know why, I can't remember what it was, the same thing. I started reading protein, first part of the meal.
Yeah, but that's not true for everybody.
No, I'm just saying that in my particular case.
All right, close us out here. What is your last actionable takeaway?
say
Everyone can start doing tomorrow.
Nobody knows your body better than you do. No doctor, no test, no bullshit. So I would say that you have the entire world's knowledge at your fingertips on the internet. That if you were going to start tomorrow, I'd start to learn and research and understand, what fits best for you, and test and tweak, and just by educating yourself and everything that's online, you can make drastic improvements without spending a lot of money and wasting a lot of time.
That's awesome. And you have 4 resources and 5 books to check out. So cool.
One last comment. I feel compelled to share this with you. Be careful who you trust and what you buy into, and ultimately trust your own experience most of all. What I have seen dominating on the internet, websites and blogs, anybody can have a website, anybody can have a blog, right? And what I see dominating on the internet is people who have nutrition and health related websites and blogs, who have far more ambition to write about these subjects than they have knowledge and understanding about what they're writing about. So just be discerning and be careful who you trust and what you buy into.
That's great. Yeah. So do your research, but be critical. So
read critically.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Really.